In the chaos of a civil war, criminal networks seize the moment. Behind these walls, people are forced to scam.
It's like a streamline workers in the factory floor. I became one of those slaves.
Hello and welcome to the Nexus. Today we're looking at the criminal networks that are using Myanmar as a base to run vast global scam operations. Thousands of people are being lured, kidnapped, and imprisoned in industrial-scale fraud centres and forced to carry out what is called the pig butchering scam. TRT's Emmy award-winning Off the Grid series has spoken to the cyber slaves and their victims in the hard-hitting documentary Myanmar Scam Factory.
We are carrying out a pig butchering scam.
J'ai fait 32 ou 34 virements dans plusieurs pays.
In a country at war with itself, there's a no man's land at the mercy of organised crime. And behind these screens, a wall of lies and exploitation, where nothing is what it seems. Torture,
उनके ऊपर सबके सामने मारते थे कि सब देखें और सब खौफ खाएं.
manipulation, enslavement.
I became one of those slaves.
Off the Grid investigates the multi-billion-dollar cybercrime industry built on slavery.
We'll be talking to the TRT producer who made that documentary shortly and a man who was imprisoned in one of these scam centres. But first, here's a look at exactly how the pig butchering scam works.
Many of the scammers participating in pig butchering schemes are themselves victims, often of Chinese criminal gangs, tricked by fake job offers promising lucrative salaries if they're willing to relocate. They find themselves trafficked into Myanmar, imprisoned in heavily guarded compounds and their passports and phones confiscated. They're then threatened with violence if they do not become online con artists. In the so-called pig butchering scam, victims across the world are tricked into repeatedly transferring more and more money over time. Initial contact is often made through dating sites, social media, or even wrong number text messages. It's an elaborate scheme built on trust and manipulation and can last for weeks or even months. Scammers fatten up their targets through fake friendships, romances, or business opportunities carefully crafted to hook their victim. And as the relationship continues, the fraudsters request financial assistance for package deliveries, air travel tickets, or other types of urgent payments. Each interaction is deliberately designed to build trust and increase pressure. The scam goes on until the victim is completely financially exhausted, the fraud discovered, or the scammers simply vanish. Gangs in East and Southeast Asia alone are estimated to be making $40 billion a year.
Let's bring in the TRT world producer and filmmaker who put this documentary together, Mouhssine Ennaimi. Mouhssine, welcome to the programme. Let's start by asking you this simple question. Why do scam centres operate in conflict or war zones?
Well, in this particular case, there is a civil war in Myanmar, and as you know, when there is a civil war, the state is not really in control. And when we see chaos ourselves, some criminal gangs, some syndicates, they see an opportunity.
Now, we're seeing the chaos is great for the scammers, but it makes doing journalism very difficult. What are the challenges of filming in such an environment?
Well, it wasn't easy, actually, because obviously we have to go to a hostile zone and we have to take care, of course, of our security. What we decided, actually, is to get close to a rebel group, people fighting for the pro-democracy group who are fighting against the junta, against the Rangoon regime. And among these people, we find a lot of fighters who are actually ex-employee of these scam centers. Most of them been lured, actually. They've been said, like, okay, there is a job as a translator, you can do this for us. But at some point, they realize this is a scamming operation. They don't want to be there because it's unethical for them. They're like looking of removing the junta from the government, and they want something fair, and they're fighting for democracy. So working for a scam center in the meantime doesn't make any sense. So those groups gave us a decent access, a very actually interesting access to those scam centers. They put us in contact with people who've been there, and we've been operating with them.
We've seen these scam centers collectively make billions of dollars every year. What makes them so effective? How do they work? How are they organized?
They make billion, actually. They make more than 40 billion a year. And to give you an idea, it is more than drug trafficking, which is quite like, existent in this area. They are effective because they really operate professionally. First of all, they build compounds, they make it look like a residential area, they make it like business centers. They look normal. In the picture we filmed, we can even see some workers, some cranes, and they're like building like a normal thing. Even the syndicate are like planting trees, flowers, making grocery shops, sometimes a temple, and everything looks so normal from outside. Also, we find out that there are some scam user guide. And in the scam user guide, it's like written in a very professional manner with rule and guidance, with like explicit advice. Be nice, make sure that you don't speak about anything polarized, divisive issues, identify vulnerability, identify weaknesses. And this is on a long term. You have to keep in mind that these scammers are not like, calling you on Tuesday and scamming you on Wednesday. No, they're calling you in February and they're scamming you in maybe like, June or July. The scammers also works as a different team. You have some people who are supposed to look for accounts. There are some people who are supposed to send you some messages, sometimes with AI, sometimes with fake profile, usually a woman made by AI and is like, doing some shopping and looking like very uninterested financially and is happy just to speak with you. Sometimes it's men, sometimes it's like people which you think could be your friend in real life. In other words, it's a masterclass in manipulation. And if I want to give you one more thing, the average amount that people get scammed, the losses, I would say, is approximately $150,000 to $200,000 per victim.
And we've seen a final question. Let's talk about how they staff these centers. Obviously, it's a lot of human trafficking. Have you spotted any patterns?
Actually, when we started the documentary, we didn't think there was a human trafficking pattern. We thought these people were scamming because it was their own will. But what we understood, some people see a job ad with an attractive payment in Thailand. They go to Thailand, they are welcomed by someone, they put them like, in a car with a driver, and they drive from Thailand, Bangkok, to Mae Sot, which is at the border with Myanmar. And after 8 hours of driving, usually they reach like, around nighttime, they go on a boat, they cross the river, and when they cross the river, this is the beginning of the end. Because at this time, literally, they are welcomed with people with weapons, and they are telling them just two things. Give me your mobile phone, give me your passport, and you can go to your room. Tomorrow, you will be told what to do. And if people don't want to be part of this, they get like, sleep deprivation, they get food limitation, they get torture. Some of them get like, beaten to death. That's been told like, to us many times by people who escaped the place. And one of the final threats, they are told they can be sold to another group, criminal syndicates that do organ harvesting.
Mouhssine Ennaimi, thank you so much for that. Really informative. Well, let's turn to one of the victims in this documentary. His name is Yihao, and he lives in the Netherlands. Welcome to the program, Yihao. Just start by telling our viewers, where were you living, what were you doing, and how were you lured into this scam?
I was trafficked and lured into a scam compound in Myanmar, Burma, back in 2022. And my parents and I paid the ransom, so I was released back in 2023 after 7 months and 18 days in the torture chamber.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
I was sent to the torture chamber for 18 days straight, and I got electroshocked. I got beaten by the PVC tube, and all those not all of the footage, but some of the footage was recorded by the cartel member and sent to my parents for the ransom purpose.
And how did the scammers persuade you to join them?
The human trafficking pitch was posed as a job opportunity to work as a English-Chinese translator for a prospective Chinese business person in Thailand. So I was flew into Thailand, and then I was trafficked to the border of the Burma and Thailand. Then I was forced to cross the river, the Moi River, to the other side.
And what kind of work did they make you do for them?
Well, initially it was a scammer job. It was just they give you the training material, okay, and they give you the cell phone and the computer. They are asking you to read through the material and to do the scammer's work. And later, I tried my best to self-rescue, and failed. Then they had done some due diligence on me to see if they should sell me to other cartel or keep me as for some other jobs. I convinced them to give me a bookkeeper's job. So that's why I let's say collect all those financial and share it with the journalists afterwards.
How did you finally manage to get away from them?
Well, it was 7 months of struggles. Initially, I tried to, let's say, collect all the information I can get on this industry. Then I reach out to my parents, explaining my situation. The ultimate solution for that matter is find the right person, the right broker who could brokerage a ransom and a release with the local military force or local authority, if you will, the border guard force. So my parents literally paid 274,000 IMD to the local military, the BGF, Border Guard Force of Burma. Then I was released by the Border Guard Force.
And since you've been released, you've told our documentary makers that you would like to seek redress, perhaps even revenge. What do you have in mind?
Oh, I mean, apparently I'm not some organized crime, and I do not have the deep pocket to hire assassin to pull off it. So that's what I do. I talk to the media, I talk to the journalists, I talk to researchers, and of course the law enforcement around the world, and especially anti-human trafficking organizations. I want to address this matter because it's not just, let's say, protecting your wallet, the wallet of vulnerables across the world. It is also about combating the human trafficking, this industrial level of human trafficking and legacy slavery in that region.
Final question, Yihao. There are many, many people still in that position as you were. If this is going to be stopped, what needs to happen?
Well, the thing is very simple. The local government should be labeled as the mafia state or mafia government by the international society. The only way moving forward to address the matter seriously is to acknowledge those governments had a hand in this sinister industry. Otherwise, they will not change after all.
Yihao, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us today and for providing some possible solutions for the future. Thank you. Well, Myanmar is not the only nation hosting these fraud factories. Many are operating in Laos, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Cambodia. A report from Amnesty International says in Cambodia, for example, they're operating with the approval of the authorities. Let's bring in Phil Robertson now, the Director of Asia Human Rights and Labour Advocates. Welcome to the programme, Phil. Nice to see you again. Let me start by asking you about Yihao's situation. How many more people are in that position?
Oh, we're talking literally tens of thousands. The scam centers have been estimated by the UN Office of Drugs and Crime to be employing as many as 100,000 people across the region. That's in Myanmar and Cambodia and Laos. We don't really know the actual numbers, but the estimates based on the number of buildings, the reports of survivors, the information that has come out indicates that we're talking at a minimum tens of thousands.
And where do they tend to be recruited from?
Well, the recruitment is from China, other parts of Southeast Asia. We've also seen significant numbers coming from South Asia, for instance, India and Bangladesh, but also further afield. There has been extensive recruitment of Africans, being brought from Kenya, from Tanzania, from also other parts of Africa, Ethiopia. Uh, and these people then are when they manage to escape, or if they're actually released, are essentially stranded on the Myanmar side of the Thai-Myanmar border because their governments really don't do very much to try to bring them back home.
And Yihao mentioned that he didn't think that the governments in the region were doing enough to crack down.
I mean, now there's been more international conferences. There's, discussions of task forces and strike forces. But it's quite clear that this problem has been allowed to fester since it first came up during the period right after COVID. The situation in Myanmar is completely lawless. Many of the scam centers are operating in areas that are controlled by so-called border guard forces, which are militia auxiliaries that operate under the authority of the Myanmar military government. Myanmar military government is trying to claim that it's involved in cracking down, but in fact, it's mostly involved in staging various different charades to indicate that a few people have been released, a couple buildings have been bulldozed, a couple computers have been found and destroyed. But the bottom line is that they're not really doing very much. It's a game of whack-a-mole where the various different scam compounds, if they get cracked down in one place, they pop up somewhere else, and this is done with the connivance of the authorities.
And why is that? Is it because they're disorganized, they're corrupt, or they're making money themselves off of this operation?
Well, the money is really the main reason. You have money from protecting these scam compounds. You have cases where corrupt officials are involved in kickbacks. You have in places like Cambodia where it appears that government officials have been co-investors or protectors of these scam compounds. So it's all about the money, and it's a massive amount of money. And this is in a region where money talks.
This is a shame, really, on the entire world. What can the United Nations or another body do about it?
Well, they need to galvanize international action. I mean, there's now discussions about, a 6-country task force that's going to work together. This is Thailand, China, and its neighbors. But the United Nations need to be more involved. I mean, UNODC, as the UN agency that deals with drugs and crime, needs to be stepping up even further. There needs to be no tolerance for scamming. And that also means unrelenting pressure against the Myanmar military government, against the Lao government and the Cambodian government, where many of these scam centers are based.
Phil Robertson, thank you so much today for your analysis. Really appreciate that. Well, Southeast Asia may be a hub, but BENEDIKT HOFMAN from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime told us that the gangs running the scam factories have a global reach.
We're seeing criminal groups from this region operating in places like Eastern Africa, Latin America, Eastern Europe, setting up either scam operations in these places or creating connections with criminal groups operating there. Cartels, for example, in Latin America, Yakuza groups in Japan, organized crime groups that are more established in other parts of the world.
Well, for more on these efforts to shut down the criminal networks, I'm joined by Jason Tower from the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organised Crime. Welcome to the program, Jason. Look, given that there is quite a lot of international pressure now, how are these scams adapting? How are they changing to avoid detection?
They're moving into new areas in Myanmar, more remote locations where they're setting up new scam hubs and continuing the same sorts of scams. Meanwhile, you have large numbers of trafficking victims who are being put in an extremely challenged position, as you've got thousands of people that have been pushed across borders. This is into Thailand. Some of these individuals have been re-trafficked. They've been kidnapped, held hostage by armed actors, particularly Myanmar military troops or its border guard force troops. So there's tremendous amounts of harm that are being inflicted on the people that have been trafficked inside of these scam centers.
And Jason, a guest earlier in the program, a former victim, has told us he doesn't feel the political will is there in the countries where these scammers are based to shut them down. Is that true?
There is no political will that's there on the part of governments or on the part of the Myanmar military, which in the case of Myanmar is the biggest enabler of this criminal activity. I think the reality on the ground is that you've got international actors that are trying to rely on the perpetrators to implement crackdowns on crime. This is just simply not going to happen. There's too much money at stake. These criminal enterprises are bringing in billions of dollars each year, and a significant amount of that feeds back into the local economies to the point where countries like Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, they've evolved into scam economies. So the mainstay of economic activity is online scamming.
And is it true that most of this activity takes place either in the English language or in the Chinese language, but the scammers are now expanding into other languages?
Yeah, so you are seeing several trends here in terms of the demographics being targeted. Traditionally, these scams targeted China, but as China started to crack down more selectively, they've pivoted more and more to English speaking countries. So large numbers of victims in the US, Australia, the UK. But more recently, you're seeing a very concerning trend towards a broader range of language groups being targeted with scams. So there actually over the last year, it came to light that there were well over 1,000 Koreans that had been lured into scam centers, and that scams were increasingly targeting Korean speakers. You're also seeing that more and more European countries are starting to be targeted with scams. With scams commonly targeting people in countries like Germany, Italy, or France. Then there's also been a surge of trafficking of individuals from the Portuguese speaking world. And I think that that's another trend you're starting to see. Some of the scam syndicates have also targeted people from developing countries. So you've seen where syndicates have targeted quite heavily also Indians. And in fact, there was a syndicate crackdown on last year that in just 6 months managed to scam 66,000 Indians. So you are seeing that there's a broader and broader spread of targets, particularly as the scam syndicates have access now to people from roughly 70, almost 70, I think about 78 different countries around the world have now been trafficked or lured into these scam centers. Plus, they're using quite sophisticated AI interpretation tools that allow scam centers to target people even when there are language barriers.
Well, that said, many people around the world now are potentially going to fall prey to the scammers. Can I just ask your advice how they might be able to spot a scammer and stop it all before it gets started?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question. Right now, a lot of the scams start off with a misfired message. So it appears that someone maybe sends a message along the lines of "How was your day today?" or your package is here, or I have a delivery for you. And then they strike up a conversation with the individual, which leads to a friendship, and that eventually leads to that individual getting scammed. I think having general knowledge about how these scams get started is important. The other thing to know, of course, about these scams is that the scammers are generally trying to get people to make investments in cryptocurrency. Now, in many cases, they want to build and establish trust before they'll introduce that investment opportunity. But I think one key thing here is that there needs to be greater literacy when it comes to some of these different forms of cryptocurrency and cryptocurrency investment products. I think if there were higher levels of literacy of these sorts of things, that would also help prevent people from falling victim to some of the different sorts of scams.
Jason Tower, thank you very much for that advice today. I'm sure it might help someone in the future. Thanks so much. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. You can watch that off-the-grid investigation into Myanmar scam factories on our main YouTube channel at TRT World. Till next week then, goodbye.